And we start this hour with more fallout from the Hillary Clinton email scandal as we get some new poll numbers on how another Democrat could shake up the race for the White House. Welcome to Happening Now, everybody. I'm Jenna Lee.
And I'm Greg Jarrett in for John Scott. Later today, there'll be a status hearing in the Judicial Watch lawsuit over Hillary Clinton's emails. But now, Fox is learning new details about a striking detail that's actually buried inside a State Department filing.
What is that? Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Harris, is live in Washington with more. Catherine?
Well, thank you, Jenna. This new State Department filing in the Judicial Watch lawsuit confirms that Mrs. Clinton did not use a State Department-issued device which was certified as secure. This means all of the devices in the photos that we see here and have for many months are not government encrypted. Rather, they were personally owned by Mrs. Clinton. This takes the loss of national security data potentially to a whole new level. And that court filing in the federal court here in Washington reads in part, quote, SESIRM, that's the code for the State Department IT agency, does not believe that any personal computing device was issued by the department to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and has not located any such device at the department. Fox News asked the State Department about this issue of certification earlier this week.
All of Secretary Clinton's and her associates' devices that were tied to the email server been certified as secured by the State Department?
I'm not aware of any such certification on that, and I would refer you to former Secretary Clinton and her staff.
And what we also learned in that filing, aside from the fact that Mrs. Clinton was not issued a government device, which would be standard practice and in accordance with the rules, is that two of her aides, Huma Abedin, as well as Cheryl Mills, had BlackBerries that were issued by the State Department, but they can no longer be located, and the State Department believes that they were destroyed because they were outdated models, Jenna.
Catherine, thank you very much. Larry Sabato is now joining us, director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. And Larry, it's become blatantly clear to us that how one sees this story depends on what corner of the ring they are fighting from. You get to be the referee in all of this. How do you see this story?
Well, you're certainly correct, Jenna, that the polarization in America causes almost all Republicans to view the Clinton email drama dimly, and Democrats, by and large, tend to defend her. However, she's running for president. And I think it's pretty obvious that Joe Biden, for example, and to some degree Bernie Sanders, have been moving up because the concerns about Hillary Clinton have been growing. Now, those are the facts, and Democrats have to deal with it.
I apologize to interrupt you, but do you see a connection between the email story and the drop in her favorability rating, or is that attributed to something else that's happening on the campaign trail?
Well, there could be multiple causes, but I would say the email controversy, the email scandal has got to be number one on the list. It's dominating the headlines. It's causing Democrats to wonder whether she can be an effective nominee for their party. So let me ask you this. Last week, actually a week ago, precisely to the day, you said something on our program that I have been quoting and re-quoting and attributing to you, of course, Larry, that 20% of likely that 20% of likely voters are actually paying attention in August. And I'm curious about that. Does that apply across the board to any news story that's out there, whether it's completely innocuous or something like the FBI is investigating your server? Well, the 20% means political activists in both parties. They're the ones who, by and large, are going to be voting in the caucuses and primaries. You know, the turnouts actually are quite low. I wish they were higher, but they're quite low. So that's what I was referring to. Now, no question, if you have a high-profile story, whether it's Donald Trump on the Republican side or it's the email scandal for Hillary Clinton, I think more people do pay attention. At least they absorb more from the headlines. They may not get into the story, but they absorb more from the headlines.
Okay, let's take a look at a new poll that's out today from Quinnipiac University showing that Hillary Clinton is the clear winner in 3 key swing states. We see them on our screen: Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. But, and here's the but in all of this, Vice President Joe Biden, if he decides to enter the race, also runs well or even better against top Republicans. Voters in those states were asked who they would vote for if the election were held today. Biden beats Donald Trump in Florida by 3 points, in Ohio by 10 points, and in Pennsylvania by 8. And we should note, Larry, earlier this week we saw a poll that showed the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton shrinking. What do you think of this whole potential Biden story?
Part of it, Jenna, is that Biden is now presented as the non-Clinton alternative. And so a lot of people are saying, yeah, I'm for Biden, because they're really saying, I've got some concerns about Hillary. Also, Joe Biden's been around long enough to know that you are never as popular as the day before you announce for president. Then you start going downhill. Why? They start replaying the old video of your gaffes and goofs and problems, and Joe Biden's had a long political career, and he's got a lot of those.
Interesting. So that could be a factor if he does decide to announce, and quite frankly, we have no idea on that right now. I want to ask you a little bit about the GOP field, because interestingly enough, you've actually in the crystal ball sort of whittled down the field to the 5 names that you're really focused on: Bush, Walker, Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Kasich as well. You say Cruz and Kasich you're kind of leaving on the sidelines a little bit because your focus is on Bush, Walker, and Rubio. But you also say this about the Republican establishment, and I wanted to share this with our viewers. The Republican establishment finds itself in a crisis because some of or all of the top 3 don't prove their mettle on the campaign trail. What do you mean by that?
They haven't caught fire. Jenna, they just haven't caught fire. Perfect example last night when Donald Trump had tens of thousands of people at a raucous town meeting just down the road. Jeb Bush had, let's put it kindly, a sedate town meeting. That was a good prelude to people having an excellent night's sleep. And that's the problem right now. The other Republicans just aren't turning the base on, and they have to fix that problem. The good news for them is they have months to fix it and a whole lot of money, particularly in Bush's case, but also Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is second to Bush in money. There are quite a few of them that have the resources to fix their problems.
Do you think it's a GOP problem, meaning a problem for the party overall, or do you think these are individual issues for these candidates?
I don't think it's a party problem yet, because we're nowhere near the general election of 2016. You know, we all act, and I'm as guilty as anybody, we all act as though the election's next week because we're trying to build interest in it. But the election is a year and over 2 months away. That's a long time, and 100 major things will happen between now and then that will shake things up.
That's totally well taken, the point. Some of us wish it was next week because, well, we've already said all the names too many times at this point. I'm starting to dream about. Well, anyways, let me ask you this final question about Hillary Clinton, though. You also made this point in your note. I want to make sure that our viewers hear it as well. When do you think this story, this email issue, whatever it is, some say it's a scandal, some say, you know, it's a non-issue. What are you watching over the next few weeks into the fall, which you say this is when things start getting more important? When do you see it being the tipping point between it really being a situation for her that she has to manage further, or a non-issue and it's cleared out of the way as she runs to be candidate?
Well, obviously, if there's an indictment, that would totally transform things. And generally speaking, there's this drip, drip, drip that everybody's talked about. And that's true for all scandals, but boy, have we gotten used to this with the Clintons. At a certain point, the scandal takes on a life of its own. I think it's very close to that right now. And that's when a candidate really has problems. How do you go forward with your campaign agenda when every time you have a press availability or you meet with normal voters, they ask mainly about the scandal?
Well, Hillary Clinton's campaign says no one in any of the town halls has asked about the scandal, according to them. It's something that the press is only focused on. We'll see, though. Mrs. Clinton is in the Hamptons for the next week and a half or so, doing a few events, but taking a little bit of a time out for a summer vacay. So we'll see what happens over the next few days. Larry, great to see you as always. Thank you. I'll continue to quote you, by the way.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks so much.
Well, we want to hear from you as well. Could the email controversy prevent Hillary Clinton from getting the Democratic nomination? Is it that big of a deal? Are you waiting for an official indictment before making a decision? Larry makes a good point there. We don't even know if that's going to happen. Will it? Our live chat is up and running. Just go to foxnews.com/happeningnow to join the conversation.